still the same. So, I mean, yes, you need to organize in transparent ways, and you need to organize in on the ground, but you also have to be aware that even when you're doing that, they still can put an informant in the area, like the New York 21, say, for instance.
Right.
Gene Roberts was a police officer.
Explain who the New York 21 were.
The New York 21 was 21 Panther leaders that were locked up in New York as a result of a massive conspiracy to bomb the garden, New York Botanical Gardens, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it was orchestrated by a police officer that brought in the materials, brought in the maps, accused them. They end up going to jail. They spent 2 years in jail. It destroyed the New York Black Panther Party leadership. And they never broke a law. They never did anything. They got exonerated after 2 years of their trials. But here was this one state official that did that to them. So even when you don't engage in violence, you still can be set up by the state.
Right, but the point is that that kind of a discussion would have never happened in the Southern Christian leadership. So they use these conspiracy laws to get you to discuss the possibility. We've seen this with Black Bloc anarchists today. They get you to discuss the possibility of violence, and then they can throw you in prison for even discussing it. And I think that if we look back on that moment, which was extremely important moment in American history, where there was real pushback against white supremacy, the white elite, capitalism itself, the state effectively destroyed not only these radical movements, but the consciousness that these radical movements sought to create, unless you would disagree.
Well, I don't disagree because you can organize publicly, and then your concerns about being infiltrated is more so than if you organize on the clandestine level. And then even on the clandestine level, you have people that might be becoming informants. Like in my situation, I was captured in 1982, and I was set up for the FBI by the former Black Panther, who was recommended to assist me in my efforts to avoid capture, right? So, but we have to be more selective in what we do and who we pick to choose to operate with. The person that can't have any drug shortcomings or all kinds of weaknesses that the government can exploit. But what the government do, they study us as a people and find out what we like, what we don't like, and take it from there, right? So you have to be more selective in your approach as to who you pick.
But part of the problem is that the state has such immense resources.
And that's not just part of the problem. That is what gives the state the advantage, because even as the Black Liberation Movement and other movements were being attacked, the organized capitalists also offshored all the industry.
Right.
It completely gutted the workforce.
Right.
And that left, especially in poor communities and Black communities, that left massive unemployment, in which they then in turn pumped drugs in.
No, you make a very important point, and this is Christian Parente makes this point in his very good book, Lockdown America, Police and Prisons in the Age of Crisis. And he writes exactly the point that you raise, where he says that while the Nixon era buildup had been a counter-revolutionary war by way of criminal justice and a technocratic reflex to social chaos, the second ongoing wave in the crackdown is not so overtly political. It is not about suppressing an American Mau Mau. Rather, it has been about managing and containing the new surplus populations created by neoliberal economic policies, even when these populations are not in rebellion. And so what you get within poor communities, and you're right to raise this point because we had two things going on: neoliberal economics, which created endemic chronic poverty and joblessness, coupled with an assault on people like you who were attempting to resist. You create what Steven Spritzer, a criminologist, describes as cast-off populations, produced, of course, by capitalist exploitation. And one segment he calls, perhaps a little cruelly, social junk. These are the alcoholics, the people who've been broken in spirit, physically, the drug addicts, and then the other are people like you who are the social dynamite. And the way you control what he calls the social junk is essentially to contain them. So we're here today now at a situation where, while the state is not killing in the numbers that it killed in the 1960s, it's certainly killing at a terrifying rate, 2 today, according to the Washington Post. Many of these people unarmed. It doesn't matter how much protest there is. We have seen in New York and other cities in the last few weeks assassinations of police officers. These have not been, whether they were political acts or not, they've not been characterized by the mainstream as political acts. And I'm asking you, as revolutionaries, as people who rose up against this system, what are the lessons that you've learned that are applicable today? Audrey.
That resistance is possible because we don't have no choice but we can remain a slave or rebel. I mean, we have to learn from our past mistakes to avoid future ones.
And what have you learned? What is the lesson?
I was too trusting, for one. I made liberal excuses for people that I shouldn't have been dealing with. I made liberal excuses for people who had been using drugs and I shouldn't have. You know, this should have been outed from the formation. And like a lot of people have personal shortcomings or family ties that they maintain contacts with whereas they shouldn't have. You just have to study.
But was your decision to go underground in an armed revolutionary movement, that's not a decision you would take back?
No, because I'm still being oppressed. I don't have a choice in the matter. Either, like I said, just said, I can remain a slave or rebel. I chose to rebel.
Eddie?
Well, I think the things that we learned, hopefully that we have learned, is that you have to organize in the communities, community by community, and you have to try to do it legitimately. You have to recognize that you can still be framed. I'm an example of that.
Right.
But in the face of all that, the alternative is to accept the fact that it's not just violence being committed by police or law enforcement elements or other kind of elements against individuals. It's massive violence by the capitalist system itself on the population. The infant mortality rate in the poor communities is astronomical.
Which I just want to interrupt by saying it's worse today than it was when you were a young man.
The houses are collapsing, the hope is gone,
the joblessness is worse.
Is there. I mean, that's violence. All that's violence, and it's violence that will destroy a people. It's violence that almost rises to the point of genocide. The Native Americans suffered that kind of violence.
But it's violence that Spritzer points out, I think, that creates this category that he calls social junk. People who are so broken, which is the point.
And that category continue to grow as the violence intensifies and the jobs disappear, and you have your school to prison pipelines. That area, and I disagree with his terminology, humans are humans.
Right, no, it's not a good term.
But the amount of humans that are broken and shattered and destroyed as a result of this economic arrangement, it has to be checked or it will continue to grow.
Yeah.
And then, like in our communities, in order to effectively organize, we need money. Because you can't organize a hungry belly.
Right.
So if you don't have the money to meet people's basic needs, right, they're going to turn away from you. That's when the government steps in and offer what they call reforms.
Right.
So.
All right. Thank you very much. You've been watching Days of Revolt with my guests, Eddie Conway and Audrey Latula. We've been talking about the rebellions, which they were part of in the 1960s. In our second segment, we're going to talk about rebelling inside prison, which was also part of a major segment of their lives, 44 years in prison for Eddie and 28 years for Audrey. Join us next week. Thank you very much.
inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice. The American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Today, only on teleSUR.
Un pueblo es su memoria, de dónde venimos, quiénes somos, para poder decir a dónde vamos. Cuando me preguntan qué personajes de la revolución del siglo XX en América Latina me conmueven, me vienen de inmediato a la cabeza tres nombres. El primero es el Che, el segundo es Pancho Villa y el tercero es Antonio Guiteras. Ahora tengo más raíces, ahora sé de dónde vengo.
Pudo marcar en la Revolución Cubana, en la juventud, y que hoy en nuestros días es todavía un ejemplo y un paradigma para nosotros.
Y habría que añadir uno de los nuestros.
Los nuestros. Tuesdays. Only on teleSUR. A sign of resistance to hatred and injustice, Bill Fletcher Jr. conducts a discussion and analysis space to reveal the social struggles of Black people on the global Africa. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR. It is time to stop and listen to ourselves, lay stress on the events in a country, an era, or a society. The most sensitive and human stories in Latin America and the world, from the perspectives of their main figures. They have their cause. What's yours? Just Cause. Weekdays. Only on teleSUR. Community organization and revolutionary verse fused in And Don't Stop. A window to urban culture and political resistance, conducted by the hip-hop band Rebel Deers. And Don't Stop, Fridays, only on teleSUR. Closely follow the most important facts around the world with a wholesome view. We offer you to be where the news are happening with our team of 25 correspondents deployed around the globe. Live and experience the realities of our people from the South. Weekdays, only on teleSUR. The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. The World Today. On Monday, only on teleSUR. Events told by their main figures. Research findings that transcend our people's views.
Monsanto se ve entre un buen sector de los agricultores como una gran amenaza.
Hay un montón de gente que se va a España a trabajar, a otro sitio a trabajar. No tienes que estar aquí siempre para que ayude a tu pueblo.
Desde entonces estoy buscando a mi nieto. Por gente liberada, he sabido que es un varón. Hace poco ha cumplido 6 años. Alguien lo tiene.
No somos simples estudiantes que venimos, entramos, escuchamos la clase de un profesor y después nos levantamos y nos vamos, sino que entendemos lo que pasa y sobre todo tenemos que ser sujetos de cambio frente a lo que pasa y tenemos que tener un rol en nuestra educación y en nuestra sociedad.
teleSUR Report on Monday, only on teleSUR. the evidence is well organized. It reveals the stratagems that the power uses to control the system. Both resistance and dissidents condemn the crimes committed to achieve some whims. On the basis of evidence,